Hi everyone, it's Carla and welcome to Lesson 4 of Kids Art Week 2016. Today we're going to do some artwork inspired by the art of an artist named Hundertwasser. That's what he was sort of known as. He was born with Frederick Stowasser, and he changed his name many times and he ended up being Hundertwasser. Mr. Hundertwasser was an Austrian artist, and he was born in 1928, and he did go to art school briefly when he was a young man, but he quit pretty early because he felt he had learned all he needed to learn just by within a few months. He didn't like straight lines very much. He thought that they didn't have emotion or feeling. So we're going to do some pieces of art that are kind of similar to some of his work, where his lines are nice and organic. We'll have straight lines in there, but they don't have to be perfect. No rulers allowed with artwork that is inspired by Hundertwasser. Here's an example of one of his paintings, and it is abstract, kind of like Motherwell's collages from last lesson, but as you can see in some of the other pieces, there's also people. This one has a bunch of people in it. Trees and houses, and lots of trees. He loved trees. Some people. Here's another one that is both a person's face and then also a neighborhood of houses. And this is kind of what we're going to be inspired by today. Let's see. Another thing I wanted to kind of point out is he worked very slowly. If you look at these lines, instead of hurriedly coloring in with green watercolor, he very painstakingly did a line and a line and a line, and so it became a very relaxing process for him. And so I thought a great way to sort of mimic the look of this is with markers. And so here's where we're headed. This is a little Hundertwasser inspired neighborhood of houses, just 3. Here's one that's a little bit larger, and you can see I've really tried to mimic his stripiness in the ground and also around the houses themselves. Here is an example of a large one. So you don't have to stay small if you don't want to. I'm going to demonstrate on a small one so that it goes quickly. But if you want, you can do a nice big Hundertwasser piece. And I'll show you how to do it. So what you're going to need is some paper, and I'm just going to use some paper out of my mixed media sketchbook. You're also going to need some markers, and I'm going to show you right now why the 6 colors that I've chosen here are important. We have red, green, blue, orange, purple, and yellow. And the reason I'm having you pick these 6 colors, let's see, is they are the colors of a standard color wheel. So we have yellow, red, blue. And what's great about this now, these are the primary colors, and then these secondary colors are the mixtures of them, and they go in between. So yellow and red mixed together makes orange. Blue and red mixed together makes purple. And yellow and blue mixed together makes green. And so we've learned a couple things. One is that yellow, red, and blue are primary colors. Now we know also that green, orange, and purple are secondary colors. And now I'm going to teach you a third thing, and that is complementary colors. And complementary colors are colors that are across the color wheel from each other. So for example, the complementary color of yellow is purple. The complementary color of green is red, and the complementary color of blue is orange. And what you want to know about these complementary colors is that they look really good together. And the way I remember, if I get a little confused. I'm in the midst of painting and I can't remember what my colors are what. I just remember Christmas. And I remember that Christmas is red and red and green are complements and they look good together. You might not have a drill team memory from junior high, but the colors of my middle school were orange and blue. And so that's how I remember that orange and blue are complements. And then the other two colors are yellow and purple. So I just wanted to let you know that as you're drawing, that if you get going and you have a lot of red in the painting, be sure to put some green in there. It's the complement and it looks really good. So we're gonna work a little bit with using our complementary colors today. You'll also need a paintbrush and some water, a rag, and a pencil. So I'm just going to get started here. The first thing I'm going to do is just give myself a little box to draw from. And this is an optional step. You don't have to do this, but it just helps me kind of know where to stop. And I'm going to pick red for my first layer, and I'm going to do a little scene of houses. Remember that Hundertwasser liked curvy lines. And these are kind of straight, but I also want houses or the feeling of houses. Another thing that Hundertwasser loves to do are these lines. And you can slow down even slower than how I'm going right now. But this is sort of the skeleton of our house painting. Okay, so that's all you need to do for this step one, is to do a simple drawing of your neighborhood. And of course, if you go on larger paper, it'll take a lot longer than that. The next step is to water it down. But if you use too much water, it will just go away completely. I'm just going to show you an example of one I did before where I used too much water on this side. And so now I can't see the lines anymore. So you really have to be careful when you're adding the water to only add a little bit of water. You want enough water so that it spreads out and is pretty, but you don't want so much water that you can't see your lines anymore. If you make a mistake and add too much water and it goes all over the place, don't worry, just let it dry and then you can start over. But here's how to make sure that you don't get too much water in. I've dipped my brush in and then I'm going to really just pat out most of the water. And then as I go through, I'm not going to press too hard. I'm going to try to just very lightly have it go over the lines. I'm going to add just a tiny bit more water. I forgot to say earlier that these are water-soluble markers. That means that when you add water to them, they move, and that's exactly what we want. We want it to get all watercolory and have it look more like watercolor, which is what Hundertwasser used. And you don't have to have expensive markers at all. These are just Crayola markers that I get at the grocery store, and they're in the kids section. So you need to let this dry, and then we'll come and do the second step. Okay, this is dry, and it didn't take that long this time because remember, we used very little water on the paper, so it just took a couple of minutes. And so now I get to do the same thing with different colors, making my lines and coloring in my picture, and remembering that it's slow, it's meditative, it's relaxing, and you want to not worry about lines being perfect. It's okay, and in fact, it's better if they're not perfect. So I'm going to start with this one, and since I started with red, I'm going to just use my complementary of red, and that would be green, to add some lines to. I'm going to start with this house. Okay. I think I'll make the sky kind of yellow and red. Actually, I'll make one part of the sky yellow and red. So I have yellow over here, and so I wanted to have some on this side of the painting too. I learned, and I don't always do it, but I usually will add a color one place, and then I'll try to add it another place, and maybe even a third place in the painting. And you can see I did that here with the green, 3 different places. And now I'm going to go for my third right now. I'm picking orange for this side of the sky because it's kind of close to the yellow, but it's a little bit different. And that is nice too, to make things similar, but enough different that similar so that it seems like one sky, but different enough that it adds some visual interest. I think I'm also going to just add a little bit of orange over on this side. Not covering up all the red, but just some of it, because I think that'll help tie it in too. Yeah, I like that. And then I can put some orange maybe here. So blue is really dark, so I can see that being kind of an outline, but I'm going to try it on this door and see if it's okay. I think it's okay. It is very dark, but that's okay because we like darks and lights. Again, I'm just trying to add purple to several areas. Actually, you can color in some areas too, all one color. I think I'll do that. What looks good with blue? Orange. And I'm going to add a little bit of red back in. We used red as our first layer, which then was watered down, so it ended up being more pink. And so I'm just going to add a little bit of red color back in. In between some of these cracks, and maybe right there. And one last red. We're almost done here. And then I do think it needs a nice outline. And at first I thought blue, but now I think maybe purple would be pretty. And again, these are decisions that are just yours to make, and it's very much your impulse. Like, I think it's blue, but if you want purple, pick purple. If you want blue, pick blue. Okay, I'm going to call this done. The main thing to remember on this is to work slowly. Don't worry about your lines not being perfect. And if you don't know what color to use next, pick a complementary color and try that. So have fun. This is again kind of like the Paul Klee exercise, a study in color. And have fun figuring out which colors look good together and which things you like the best, because we all have different tastes, just like food. We all like different kinds of food, and some of us like some colors and some like others. So this is your chance to figure out what it is that you like. All right, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.